Well, joining us now to discuss more about African Airlines is Derek Nseko, who is a qualified commercial pilot and the CEO and founder of Airspace Africa. Thanks for joining the program, Derek. So is this a full-time comeback for South African Airlines?
Yes, thank you so much for having me, and it's a pleasure. Good evening to your viewers. Yes, with regards to South African Airways, we have to really look at South African Airways as a completely different operation from what it was pre-COVID and rather pre-business rescue. They've taken a whole different approach to the way that they're handling their business ever since the turnaround. And I think the future is looking very different, but this is a much more sensible South African Airways. And I think there's a lot of confidence to be gained from some of the measures that they've taken since the business rescue process ended. Yes, but I mean, the African aviation landscape is extremely difficult, and the jury is really still out on what the future looks like for South African Airways.
You've mentioned that South African Airways is taking a different approach. Could you mention what it's doing different this time round to make it succeed?
Yes, so it's really more about learning from the lessons of the past. I think the previous version of South African Airways was really rotten all through, and what the business rescue process did was to address most of the issues and bring to the fore things such as corporate governance. That has really been addressed in the form of bringing on especially a strategic equity partner who has actually just been given the green light. The Takaso Consortium has been given a conditional green light to come in and take a 51% stake in South African Airways. The government can no longer prop up this airline, and the responsibility has to be shared by the private sector. On the other hand, as well, the employee base was really inflated, and it has really been cut, and the airline has shrunk as well. Some of the decisions when it comes to fleet network expansion, the airline is taking a very, very different approach. You could almost look at it as being cautious, but they are being much more sensible. As you can see, they've just launched their first international route since the restart of operations. And that's very different from the rather more ambitious and bullish approach that we had from the South African Airways of yesteryear. So a lot is very different at the moment.
So, Derek, what's the general outlook of the aviation industry in Kenya if we look at other airlines such as Kenya Airways, Ugandan Airlines that are still struggling, just like South Africa, but have managed to maintain the business?
Yes, generally, the outlook on the African continent is good, but that is tempered by the fact that our businesses have been struggling for so many years. This year, COVID is actually the first year that the industry has been projected to make a profit since the turn of the pandemic. But African Airlines are still being projected to make a loss this year. A lot of the airlines on the African continent did not have it easy in COVID as well, because they did not have resilient business models. As we've just spoken about South African Airways, they had to go through a business rescue process. Kenya Airways is executing a turnaround plan. We had airlines that collapsed. The likes of Zimbabwe had to be restructured as well. Yeah, but I believe that many African airlines have learned from the issues of the past. And as you can see, airlines such as Uganda Airlines as well are emerging in their region. Kenya Airways is taking a different approach. But just this year, they recorded their first operational profit in a very long time.
All right. Thank you so much, Derek Nseko, for sharing your insights on the aviation industry here in Africa.